Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today on Pastor's Perspective. My name is Brian Perez, and it's Tuesday. You know what that means. We've got Tony Clark, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Newport News in Virginia. That's right, Tony Clark Tuesday. He's joining us via Skype. Bobby Conway, the author and apologist from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube, is there on the Bobby Cam. And here in the studio with me is Brian Broderson, the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you've got the number right there at the bottom of the screen, 888-564-6173. That number good until 4 p.m. Pacific time. So, fellas, how's it going?
Well, it's going great on my end. And the other fellows look like they're doing well, as well.
That's right.
Tony, do you still have your beard? I can't tell with the black shirt you're wearing. I think it's there.
It's here.
Okay.
It's still here.
Still there. Very nice. Growing in good.
How you guys doing? You know, I
right.
haven't, Tony, I haven't asked you for quite a while. How's things back at the church? Are you kind of back to some sort of normal experience, like a, pre-COVID, post-COVID? What's it like these days?
It would never be normal again. We just taking it 1 week at a time, and still we have people coming out. This is our first Sunday back, so it will never be normal again. Never post or pre-COVID again. I don't see it.
So what? This is your. What do you mean? It's your first Sunday back?
Well, no, that's what people are telling us. Is they come through the door and say, "This is our first Sunday back," since and so we see that all the time. Yeah. And then the ones who did come back, to see them consistently, no, not at all.
Yeah, I get that. I had some people on Sunday say, "Man, I haven't been here in a year and a half," and
wow.
I've been to church at least, in a in-person meeting. Mm-hmm. So, and then Bobby had the bright idea to start a church during COVID, and well, it was the Lord's idea, and Bobby went with it. So, how's it going?
I'm having fun.
The new church plant going well?
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Again, on one side, it would be very difficult to be in Tony's shoes or in your shoes where you've already got your flock and you're like, where did you go? Yeah. Where if you're a church planter, you have your expectations kind of set that it's going to be a slower process and you haven't had anything to really lose. You only have stuff to gain. So we're in a position where I feel like I'm having more fun pastoring than I ever have. And we're experiencing growth right now as we move toward launch. So I continue to feel like we'll be able to get this thing launched by January and I'm hopeful that we'll have 100 plus people that we will have been able to build up and disciple to gear up for a launch. Now, I'm experiencing the same thing though with some people that you're just going, man, these people, they just don't really get what it looks like to walk in deep discipleship. And for me, I'm just going to put my focus and attention where the hungry ones are and disciple in that direction. Mm-hmm. And hopefully the Lord will work. But I used to waste so much time feeling frustration, like, why won't these people get more involved and engaged? And I'm going, man, we've got some disciples that are really engaged. Yeah. So I just need to rejoice for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my son-in-law is in the process of church planting in New York City. And so they just had their soft launch on Sunday. And it was really cool. They're looking to do a full launch later on. They're looking for a permanent location before they do that. So, it's just good, to see even in these times, God bless you guys taking these steps of faith. Mm-hmm. It's great. And I think in the long run, it's going to be rewarded. Your step of faith, God's going to bless it. So cool, man. We had we had a great Sunday. It's been good, but I don't know, something this past Sunday there was I don't want to say electricity, but there was like the Spirit's presence was powerful.
Did feathers fall from the ceiling like at that church up north? No, I'm joking.
I think that's what was. I kind of wasn't sure what that was, but now that you mention it, right.
Gold pixie dust.
And I also noticed that all my fillings were gold after the service, and they had previously been amalgam.
So check this out. We have gotten some emails about this past Sunday service. People asking at the radio station, "Hey, what was that message that we heard on Sunday morning?"
No
kidding. Not
Great.
that we never get those messages,
Yeah.
but in just a few days. So I checked on the church's website. The message has not yet been posted as of a couple of hours ago, so I can't
What?
send them the links. Hey, we had a holiday yesterday, so
Right. Okay. Yeah. It should be up anytime. Yeah. But it wasn't. I mean, the message was great. I thought it was fantastic, and I wasn't preaching it, so I can say that. Char did a great job. But it was even more than that. It was like, we had communion. That was really sweet. But man, in the courtyard, there was some serious life. I felt like I was in a beehive out there, man. It was just super cool.
Very
and
cool.
real diverse, age-wise. And we were talking this morning. We were having a pastors' meeting. We were talking about how we've got this beautiful thing happening where our church is really, really becoming more and more multi-ethnic, which I just love that. That's kind of right up my alley. I mean, that's my experience in the UK, and really long for that. And I see that happening in our community. So, yeah.
very good.
Super excited.
So you can find out more about these guys' churches on their websites. Calvary Costa Mesa is cccm.com. Tony's church is Calvary Chapel Newport News in Virginia. Calvary NN, as in Newport News, calvarynn.church. And Bobby's church is Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Imagechurch.live is where you can get details about that. Now, speaking of cccm.com, that is where the live stream is happening this coming Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock for Kay Smith. How's the planning going for that?
Really well. It's going to be a great time. I mean, it's a celebration. We are very, very thankful that our mother is in the presence of Jesus and, where she always wanted to be from the time she was, 18 years old when she really committed her life to Christ. So it's great for her. And we're just going to have a really nice time of celebrating her life. And we've got, some people that knew her way back in the early days. We've got some of the Jesus people groups that are going to do some music. We've got Love Song, which anybody who knows anything about the Jesus people, Love Song is kind of was the band for that. A few others. And then some family stories and just a lot of folks that knew and loved Kay over the years. Yeah, so it's going to be great.
Yep, cccm.com is that website. And to the phones, we'll go after one Facebook question, maybe two. 888-564-6173 is the number. Here's one, two questions from Ryan in California. What was the significance of Jesus waiting 3 days and nights before he rose again? Why 3 days? Why not 2? Why not 4? Why not 14? Was it to fulfill Bible prophecy? Also, what exactly was Jesus' spirit doing in the heart of the earth for those 3 days? And next question is in regards to the parable of the sower, where Jesus describes several ways of how the word affects different people's hearts. Given more experience in life, are we able to go from one of those categories to another? Say, for instance, can we go from the seed that fell on stony ground to the seed that fell on good soil, or are we always going to be defined as one of the four? Brian, we'll start with you. What would you say?
Which question am I answering?
Whichever one you want. You've got seniority.
Okay. I want to answer the first one, but I can't remember what it was. What was the first one?
3 days and nights.
3 days
the
and
significance.
nights.
Why 3
Okay.
days, not more, less?
I mean, they kind of alluded to it. Yes, it was to fulfill Scripture. Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the, or in the belly of the great fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So Jonah was a type. His experience was a prophecy. And then of course there was the prophecy about the body not undergoing decay. And so I think on the fourth day, decay begins to set in. And so on the third day, Jesus was raised from the dead. You will not leave my soul in Hades, nor will you allow the Holy One to see decay. So I think those two things are, I don't know if you guys have any other anything to add to that, but I think those two are probably main reasons why.
Tony, Bobby?
Yeah, I totally agree.
And go ahead, Bob.
One of the things that I would add to that, in concurrence with what Brian has shared, is just the idea that according to the Jewish culture, they believed that somebody wasn't really, that their soul didn't leave the body until after 3 days. So, for example, in the case with Lazarus, Jesus waited 4 days. And some would say, well, why did he wait 4 days? Because he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. And by even waiting that extra day, there would be no argument that they could make that he wasn't really dead. In the same way that Jesus being dead for 3 days, that satisfied, obviously, the Jewish niche of their belief that would state that the soul doesn't leave the body for 3 days. So had Jesus maybe stayed dead for 2 days, it's plausible that the Jews could have argued, well, he really didn't die because he was only dead 2 days. Yeah. So that is something else to consider. And then obviously, dying on Passover and then on a Sunday would represent the first day of the week, and the new covenant represents that there's something new. If anyone's in Christ, he's a new creation. So those would be a few touching points that I would add as well.
And what was Jesus doing in the heart of the earth those 3 days? Tony, what would you say?
Well, according to 1 Peter 3, it said that he went and preached to the spirits in prison. And so the real question becomes, did he preach to just those in Abraham's bosom, or did he preach also to those that were in torment as well? But we know that he preached to the spirits in prison to let them know, some suggest to let them know that he was the promised Messiah. Some to say, hey, demons, you didn't win. I'm the Messiah. And there's just different speculation of what the message was that he preached. But we know from 1 Peter 3 that he went and preached to the spirits in prison.
All right. And Ryan's other question was about the parable of the sower, and if we can go from one of those categories to another during our Christian or our life here on earth as Christians. Can we go from being someone for whom the seed fell on stony ground to someone that it fell on good soil?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can see that in people's lives throughout time. You see some people who might have initially heard the word and it just had zero impact because the enemy ripped them off. But later on in life, maybe there's another opportunity that comes around. Plus, I think there is room to understand that parable in a discipleship context, not just in a conversion context. And so I think in our own lives as followers of Jesus, we can be in any one of those four places at times. I personally think that. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Bobby, have you given it some thought?
Well, I think what Brian is saying is absolutely right. I mean, ideally, we all want to have that heart that's bearing fruit. And, the way that I've looked at that in the past and have taught that, it's kind of like, there's only one of the hearts that this different soil represents that does produce fruit. And so I can get that for great evangelistic appeal. But I think given any of our hearts, we probably have certain things that our heart is stony on, and other times where it's fertile. And so there could be different passages of scripture that our heart receives in different ways. And so ultimately we want to have our heart really softened to just be completely receptive. I think in any area of my life, maybe where I'm lacking repentance is an area where the soil's not taking root. And so I think Brian is spot on to bring out that as a discipleship piece as well.
Yeah, and I think especially of the third category there, where the seed falls on the thorny ground or among the thorns, and the cares of this life, the deceitfulness of riches, the desire for other things come in and they choke out the word. I think if we're honest, we've all had seasons like that in our lives where, we get distracted and we're preoccupied with other things and they become a priority. And then, those weeds got to get plucked up and we got to get back to that place. So,
Any thoughts, Tony?
Yeah, that's a great point because yes, we know that that the parable of the sword talks about the types of seed or types of heart that the word falls upon. But the word of God is also to believers. And so just like Pastor Brian said, that there are times by which we can allow the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desire of other things to choke the word, out of our lives, and we become unfruitful in that particular area that we're disobedient to. So I think that's a great point.
All right, Ryan, thanks for sending in your question on Facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective using the Messenger feature, which is a way to get your question answered, but not the best way to get your question answered. Some people have been waiting for years for us to answer that question that they sent in on Facebook. Just call in. We're probably not going to get to you, so just call in. 888-564-6173. Better chance that way. All right, we're going to start our time on the phones with Salome in California. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say it's been like just maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started really listening on the radio, and then I realized I'm working at home and I can sit and I can listen, and I'm so really excited. But to my question.
That's great.
And hello, everybody, and God bless you all. And thank you so much for what you're doing and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're living in such a time where it is so difficult for us to meet, and even as a church body, even if we are, not as how we used to. And I guess what I'm asking is, how do we, in practical terms, what are some of the ways that we can truly evangelize and reach even people in our community and people around us who are not saved, or even if they are saved and they are weak and needs to be strengthened? What are some of the things that as a church body, as a local church body, that we can do to reach people, let them know that Jesus saves and he keeps and he satisfies at this time when, we still have to be observing the protocol of pandemic, not being able to meet up, not being able to go to their homes and and see them and do that communication with them about the gospel or that evangelism aspect of it.
Yeah. Now, has your church done anything different in the past year and a half?
We have. We absolutely have. As far as we are also virtual, right now we're back in the temple, so we're doing both virtual. And before we were only in the temple as well. But even the other day, I was thinking about now we can have like open ear services like in our community, and I'm just looking for different ways that we can, we can fish. The Bible calls us fishers of men. Mm-hmm. So there are certain things that we should be able to do. There are certain ways in which we can fish. And so I'm just soliciting different ways. Do you think that we can do that as a body of Christ?
Right. So just different ways than just meeting on Sunday mornings. Tony, we'll start with you on this one. What would you suggest?
These are some tough times, and we just got to be wise. And I think that trying to do it virtually, of course, is one way. But I think we have to be intentional nowadays. Because even though we have to follow protocols and still practice all these things because of the pandemic, those who really want to share the gospel and be evangelistic have to be intentional. We just sent out a team, this past, Thursday. What's the day? Tuesday. Last Thursday, we sent out a team every, once a month to go out on the streets and try to engage the people and talk to the people. That's being intentional. And there's a lot of fruit that comes from that as well. It's old school as far as getting out on the streets, but it's still something that is effective. That we are doing, and we're still trying to come up with, creative ways in order to engage the community as well. So that's just one way, old school, go out on the streets, virtual, as you're at the grocery store or whatever. It's just get it in where you can fit it in.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of groceries, Pastor Brian, I know Calvary Costa Mesa has done a bunch of grocery distributions here on the campus where we've invited people to come to us. And that's been a really effective, I think, fruitful in the sense of a seed planting time. And we've seen a bit of a harvest as well from it. But yeah, over the time of the pandemic, about a year ago, we partnered with Saddleback Church here locally, and man, we've had well over 100,000 folks come through our parking lot and receive not just food, but receive prayer and counseling and different things. So yeah, that's one way that we've done that. I'm curious though about your situation, Salome. With did you say you're back with virtual services right now? You're not meeting in person at your church?
No, we are. We are doing both now.
Oh, you're doing both. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just a bit curious about that. I know there's, different things happening in different places around the country. I was just up in Santa Barbara yesterday, and I was kind of shocked to find that basically any store or restaurant you went in, you had to be masked. That's not the case in Orange County. So it was like, the one time I didn't bring a mask with me. So my daughter had one. So all three of us were trading off on the mask going in. But yeah, okay. Great. Bobby, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Yeah, I'm sitting on Pastor's Perspective with you guys right now.
That's not what he meant, Bobby.
I know. I feel the angst that Salome feels as well. I do think that when it comes to doing evangelism, I like when in Matthew 28, go and make disciples. That's a present active participle, the word go. And so the way that plays out is, as you are going, make disciples. So it's this idea that disciple making is a lifestyle. And as I had a mentor once say to me, when you go to the bank, don't go to the bank to make a deposit or take a withdrawal. Go to the bank to make disciples, to be a witness for Christ. And while you're there, go ahead and take out some money. When you go to the grocery store, don't go to the grocery store to get groceries. Go to the grocery store to be a witness for Christ. And while you're there, go ahead and get some groceries. When you go to the gas station, don't go to the gas station to get gas. Go to the gas station to be a witness for Christ. While you're there, go ahead and get some gas. What I liked about that is it really showed me through a description of how it can be a lifestyle, that you just keep your eyes open for opportunities around you. The Bible, Jesus says that the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray to the Lord of the harvest to raise up, disciples to go into the harvest field. So I think that we could be praying specifically for opportunities, that we can realize that opportunities come in the least expected places sometimes, like at a gas station or at a bank or at a grocery store. So we just keep our eyes open and we plant seeds and we keep it natural. We don't cram the gospel down people's throats. And I think another opportunity, honestly, is inviting people into our homes, inviting neighbors into our homes, having dinner with people. I think many people, regardless of the pandemic, are more than happy to go and have some fellowship with people, and they're not going to show up with 3 masks on their face. I think that, I had people over at our house the other night. We had 10 or 12 people. We had amazing fellowship. It was beautiful. Out of that fellowship, we got a Facebook or FaceTime a couple days later with an African-American couple saying, we want to join what you're doing here, because they know we want to do a diverse church. We just invited them into our home, and out of that relational capital came, we want to be a part of what you're doing. So I was really excited. They made our night. So I'd say just keep your eyes open, pray.
So don't go to the grocery store just to buy produce, but go to the grocery store to produce fruit, which fruit is produce, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, any other thoughts before we go to our next
there
call?
you go.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much this will add to what's already been said, but I'm just about finished reading a book called Evangelism to a Skeptical World. I don't know if you guys have seen that by Sam Chan. And are you familiar with Sam Chan, Bobby?
No, is he related to Francis?
All of the Chans are related to one another. Jackie, Francis, Sam. As a matter of fact, I know two Francis Chans. So,
Really?
Yes, I do.
You know what? Yes, I've read this book.
Yeah, that's a great book. He's a guy from Sydney. He was a former medical doctor who became got his PhD in theology at Trinity. But it's a really good book. And one of the things that he's talking about, he does a couple chapters on kind of looking at modernity and post-modernity. And he's talking about, just the way things were during the modern period and the way things are becoming more and more today. I mean, obviously there's an overlap between the two things, but I like the way he summarized this. He said in modernity, the scientist was the sort of the apex. You wanted to hear what the scientist had to say. In post-modernity, you want to hear what the artist have to say. And so he was just talking about, although postmodernism has a lot of negative aspects to it and complicate things in a bit of a sense, when it comes to the gospel, yet his point is that postmodernity opens a lot of interesting doors, and because it lends itself to hospitality, it lends itself to relational kinds of things, much more than sort of the modern mindset of, hey, just give me the facts and, prove to me there's a God, prove to me the Bible is true, prove to me that Jesus rose from the dead, where the postmodern mind is more like, well, let me see what this has done in your life, and then, maybe I'll think about it if I see something or I experience something. So all that to say, I think the more we can build relationships with people, and the more we can be hospitable, and kind of natural, I think looking at the old sort of style of evangelism, which was all sort of based on propositional truth, you just get the facts out there to people and then they respond to the facts. And I mean, in some ways, even as I would do that over the years, I felt like, this just seems kind of mechanical. And I think the last thing we want to come across is as mechanical. But here's the thing I found interesting. I found interesting that, the West bought into modernity and now into postmodernity, but most of the rest of the world never did. So they're kind of just living in a way that is even, similar to the way people lived in biblical times. And so I was thinking how Jesus knew all of this stuff. Jesus was the master storyteller. I mean, Jesus knew how to get the gospel across to people, and he would tell them stories, and he was relational and all of those things. So anyway, I just found the book to be really, really good in certain areas. So
check it out. It's called Evangelism in a Skeptical World, How to Make the Unbelievable News About Jesus More Believable. It's by Sam Chan. And Salome, thank you so much for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of your questions at 888-564-6173, 888-564-6173. I'm Brian Broderson. I'm Brian Perez, here with Brian Broderson, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark. I need a name tag. I forgot my name. Anyway, we'll be back in a bit. 888-564-6173. And we're back to Pastor's Perspective. We've got Tony Clark and Bobby Conway. Do you remember the days, Pastor Brian and Bobby, I know you haven't forgotten, when I could not get your last name correct? I called you Bobby Conrad and Bobby Caldwell and just about every name out there. I just couldn't get it straight. And finally got it right. And I've gone quite a few months with the right name. Patting myself on the back there. Yes, I'm sure you appreciate it. 888-564-6173 is the number to call this afternoon, evening with your questions. And let's continue, shall we? Or does anybody have any other thoughts to...
My only thought is Brian is making me jealous because I'm looking over his shoulder at home. And, that Southern Cal's looking really good right now. And, just soak it up.
One of the reasons why I love having you guys on Tuesdays, because I know that you both covet life in Southern California, and it's just an opportunity to provoke you a bit. So
to teach us, yes.
Now, Bobby, you're coming out here this month or next?
Yeah, I will. I'll be out in a few weeks or so, and
cool.
I can't wait. So,
Tony, what about you? Any plans?
No, not any recent, even any coming up, but I wish, but no, not yet.
Tony just turns up all of a sudden, you just
unannounced.
All of a sudden you realize that, wait, you're in Southern
here.
California. What are you doing? But you were in Hawaii, of all places, last
poor thing,
last outing, last adventure.
Yeah. But I tell you, nothing like Southern Cal.
No,
that's right.
Great to hear.
It's true. It is a nice place, but
yes, it is.
Somebody's got to live here.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
I know that's right.
Let's start this segment with Venus in California. Hi there, Venus. Welcome to the program.
Hi. It's
Hi.
a pleasure to be able to have you take my call.
Thank you for calling.
The reason I called to ask that particular question,
Which is?
did Miriam Joseph have other children, is because I have a brother that's Jehovah's Witness, and he cannot ever talk to me without asking me a question to see if I know the answer. And I didn't have any scripture to back it up, and I thought maybe I would call and let you help me out with that.
Now, are you asking about children or specifically daughters?
Well, I did ask about daughters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brian?
I didn't know. I didn't know if he had any daughters.
Yeah, Venus, it
Where can I
says
find that in the Bible?
in Matthew 13, verse 56, and in Mark chapter 6, verse 3, both of those passages refer to the sisters of Jesus. So Matthew says, and his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then does this man have these things? So this is when the people in Nazareth were questioning where Jesus got his power from. And so they made a reference to his sisters. And the same situation in Mark. Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Joseph, Judah, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?
So there's two passages right there. Now, Tony, do you know, does the Jehovah's Witness Bible, the Watchtower Bible, do they change those verses, or are they in that Bible?
Yeah, it is. It happens to be in the New World Translation as well. So that's why I'm a little baffled that that particular question will be asked. But yeah, it's in their Bible as well.
Venus, does that help you?
Yes, that helps me. The reason he asked, I was not raised Jehovah's Witness. I was brought up in the Lutheran church. And for some reason that I don't remember that ever being singled out about the sisters.
All right. Well, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Let's stay in California, talk to Carol. Welcome to the program, Carol.
Hi.
Hello.
You had a call last week about free will. I think the caller was asking about the abortion issue in Texas, and he was under the assumption that sinners have free will. And the pastors on the show that day told him no, that, when it comes to that, people don't have free will. And I know that that's a hot topic with Christians. So I'm wondering why you expect people who don't know Jesus to live as if they do know Jesus. Because I've always heard that we all have free will. We all make choices. So, but you told him that they don't. That they don't have choices. They don't have free will when it comes to that. So I just want somebody to just elaborate that to me, because I don't understand.
Okay. Well, the point was that, we all have free will, but if we violate laws, our free will runs up against the law. So I don't have the free will to go kill somebody. I mean, in one sense I do. I can go kill somebody, but if I do, there's a penalty for doing that. So that was the point that was being made. Our free will runs up against laws. And so our free will is limited by laws. And God's law says you shall not murder, and abortion is murder. So can somebody exercise their free will and do that? Yes, they can. But that means that they are implicated before God for their transgression of his law.
Does that help you, Carol?
Yes, I understand that. But if they're not Christians, then they're not thinking about God's law. They don't care. It doesn't apply to them, right?
But the law of the land applies to you whether you're a Christian or not. So if you,
right,
most people who kill people aren't Christians, so hopefully.
Right. But I'm thinking until somebody is transformed by the power of God, then they're going to do what they want to do. But when you guys told them that they don't have free will, that just blew my mind. I was like, wait, don't all sinners have free will to do what they want? That's why we're in a world full of sin and evil, because people have free will. But, I understand the whole thing. I understand that. I understand that they're going to...
Well, God puts his law over against our free will. So, we have to understand that. The law of God applies to everybody. It doesn't just apply to Christians. It applies to the whole world. Paul tells us in Romans that God has given his law that the whole world may become guilty before God, that every mouth, every voice may be silenced, and the whole world may become guilty before God. So, again, we can make laws that violate God's law in the sense of the way we live out our lives, but nevertheless it doesn't change God's law. So God's law remains the same regardless of whether we ignore it or we try to change it or whatever the case. So
yeah, Bobby, were you here that day when we had that question come into the program?
I think it was Cheryl and I.
Oh, okay, yeah. Friday. Okay, but Bobby, I think you had some thoughts anyway, right?
Well, I mean, the whole idea too is, how in the world would we ever see that we need to get saved as a non-believer if there weren't moral laws that we broke? And if abortion doesn't fit into that repertoire of sin, then I don't know what does. And just to be frank and transparent, to share with our listeners, I never heard the gospel till I was 19. I got a girl pregnant when I was 17. There was an abortion there. And I can tell you that I felt a moral law at work in my own conscience. And I know that she did as well, going off to college to a secular counselor, trying to figure out how to deal with the guilt that she experienced. And I was experiencing all kinds of guilt in my own life. And I found myself confessing sin to an unknown God. never even hearing the gospel. And it was the very gospel that helped me to experience some healing and forgiveness. And the worst thing that could have ever happened was for me to become a Christian and to never, what is confession? It's agreeing with God. And I can tell you, when I came to agree with God that the abortion was wrong, that my promiscuity was wrong, that my drug abuse and alcohol abuse was wrong, that my lying and my stealing and my cheating, that it was all wrong. And we can't come to the cross without recognizing that there's sin. And so if we get non-believers off the hook, well, they're just non-believers, so they shouldn't feel convicted about this. I go, that wasn't my experience. In fact, non-believers, they'll never come to the cross if we would just say, well, they're just doing what non-believers do. Well, no, that non-believers need to realize that the moral law has been written on their heart. And that's how we come to the cross.
Yeah, and I was going to, that just reminded me that my point was that we are, whether we're believers or non-believers, we're made in the image of God. And because we're made in the image of God, we have, as Paul says in Romans, we have traces of the law that remain within us. Even though it's been disfigured, there's still evidence of God's law in us, in the sense that we know right from wrong. And we are guilty when we do wrong, until we harden our hearts to the point where we no longer feel guilt. But nobody who's sinned has done so without a sense of conviction at some point or another. Maybe today you have zero conviction at all, but that's not where you started.
Anything to add, Tony?
Yeah, what they're saying is what Romans 2:15 said that the law is written on every man's conscience, accusing us or else excusing us. So the 10 Commandments is written on every man's conscience, just like the great doctor said when he did the abortion and all that kind of stuff. Thou shalt not kill was just hitting his conscience. And he felt the conviction as a result of that. And so the 10 Commandments is written on every man's conscience. And so the thing about it is that the believer, the unbeliever, they all have that moral law that is written there. Now they can silence that voice. They can try to quiet that conscience and sear their conscience with a hot iron and all that other stuff. But it is there, and God put it there.
Good conversation, guys. Carol, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective, 888-564-6173. Let's go to Don in California. Hi there, Don. How can we help you?
Hi. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
How can we help you?
I have a question. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
My question has to do with the controversial... you guys were talking, I think it was last week or the week before, about Christians having the right to self-defense or not. And I was thinking of when I was younger and I studied looking for answers. And I read the history of the church, early church, that where Christians were sacrificed in the arenas, and that they were given swords, but when the gladiators came out, they threw their swords down.
Okay.
And also the verse that I would like someone to comment on, please, they love not their lives unto death. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly where that is.
All right, Bobby, what do you say to Don?
Yeah, it's in Revelation chapter 12, verse 11. And basically loving their life not unto... so much as to shrink from death is the way that the NIV words it, which is kind of good. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. And that's kind of what's happening. You know, these are your martyrs. And so there is an element where, okay, self-defense, and then there is your martyrs like Jan Hus and others who have died throughout church history. You're exactly right. The martyrs that would die in the Colosseum or what have you. So I think that not all self-defense means that you're on your way to martyrdom. And so obviously you're not going to defend yourself from the standpoint of somebody's persecuting you for your beliefs. But if somebody is not necessarily persecuting you for your beliefs, and when I say defend yourself, I mean, you're not going to take a gun out and cap somebody or take a sword out in that way. But as it relates to somebody breaking in our house, that's a different thing. Somebody breaking in our house, they're not breaking in because we're a Christian, or we would not be able to appraise that in the moment. So I think you can have those things separated out. Now, it's possible that somebody would break into your house because you're a Christian, so it gets really difficult. But I do think, biblically speaking, we can have both things that are in place, where we get persecuted for our faith, and we're blessed for it, and we don't shrink from that. And in shrinking from it, we stand strong. We continue to confess Jesus. We don't compromise on our testimony. But then there's the other side, where it might have nothing to do with even our beliefs or faith system, but somebody just acting unjustly towards somebody else, and we defend somebody. And both of those can square in Scripture.
Don, what do you think?
I think that's pretty good. Sounds pretty good to me.
All right. Tony or Brian, anything to add?
No, that's great. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Let's talk to Daniel in California. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm all right. I'm doing okay.
Great. How can we help you?
See, I have a question, because a few weeks ago, the critical race theory debate came up on during one of the Pastor's Perspectives airing, and one of the hosts, I'm not exactly sure who it was, said that they didn't see CRT being taught in the public school system or schools in general as viable, but within the church that was a more appropriate context to teach that kind of perspective on the current system that's in place in the country.
And you disagree?
So I guess what I'm asking is, what was the reasoning behind, because it's a political flashpoint, and it's not clear, because each side of the spectrum, it seems like they define it in their own way.
Okay.
And I thought it would be useful to clarify, to open up a discussion, ask this question, so that to inform people on what it would look like if we were to teach it inside the church.
Okay, Brian.
Well, I would like to have Tony talk for a minute about, his perspective on critical race theory. I mean, obviously it's related to African Americans. It's originated in African American thought. And so, Tony, I know you've thought about this. You've read about it. What's your perspective on CRT?
It's very unfortunate because, critical race theory wasn't even a term 2 years ago. And now it is the big hot topic right now. I've heard, different people try to describe it and try to get some kind of clarity on it. And I just think that, just the church need to just be sensitive and listen to what the African American community is saying, and not immediately write it off as Marxism and that sort of thing. Because I've told people several times, what Black people have experienced in this country preceded Karl Marx by 200 years. So I just think that it's just very sad that, because the world wants to try to understand the African American plight a little bit better, that all of a sudden now is considered critical race theory and all kind of other stuff. And what I've been saying is that do we care about lost people? Can we just care about people who are lost and not be ready to label them and not to dismiss what they're saying by calling it critical race theory? And it's just real sad to me. So I just leave it, right there, and because it's just a sad thing for me, that people would take what I'm saying right now. See, he believes critical race theory. I'm like, how about just caring about lost people? That's all we're just trying to say. Listen to the plight of a group of people who have been crying out for hundreds of years, and just try to understand. That's all I'm trying to say with this whole critical race theory stuff.
Daniel, what do you think of that answer?
I agree with the doctor. Because I think it's dangerous if teachers aren't prepared, right? If because it can lead to divisiveness, to division, and I think it has. But also, I think to completely ignore, to be colorblind and say that there is no color line, it also seems as dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, are you a teacher yourself?
I'm a student. I go to going to school.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I think that I think it's important to recognize that there are aspects. Now, remember too, critical race theory is taken and it's applied very broadly outside of the race issue, and so. But I think to just completely dismiss it is a mistake, because, like Tony's saying, people are crying out of their plight, out of their pain, out of a history of oppression and injustice and things like that. So I think we need to listen, and we need to take the valid aspects of critical race theory and really consider them. I think that we would all probably agree as well that there are certain aspects of critical race theory that we would disagree with and not want to take on board some of the ideas. And that's especially when it gets into the more broad application of it, and the idea that someone who has not experienced some sort of oppression has zero voice. They can't weigh in or have any thought about it. It's only now for those that have been perceived to be marginalized far outside the African American community. They are the only ones that can speak with authority on anything and so forth. It's quite a knot, to untangle it. But I think I wanted you to say that, Tony, because I think that's really the real issue there. I think a lot of times in the church, unfortunately, people don't want to hear the voices of those who are crying out. And so it's easy to just tag a label on you and say, well, you're this, and we disagree with that, so therefore we don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And we completely reject that.
Daniel, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. Let's see if we can squeeze in one more. Jasmine, quick, we've got about a minute.
Oh, wow. Hi, my question is, I work for Muslim people, and I'm a caregiver, and I'm taking care of an elder right now. He's like 89, and he's sick. He has dementia and Alzheimer, and I don't know what to do. I only pray for him, cover him with the holy blood of Jesus Christ, but sometimes I wonder if, can he understand me if I speak to him the word? And am I going to get fired because they have cameras in the house? If I pray out loud or whatever, but as soon as I can, and in one corner, I pray and I bring angels and I bring Jesus into the house. But he also can't sleep at night sometimes, and then I don't know. I feel like God has shown me he's just scared to be gone, because apparently he's been like that 8 years. So.
Brian, we're running out of time. What would you say in about 45 seconds?
Well, Jasmine, that's tough. That's heavy stuff. I think what you're doing is great. Keep it up. Keep praying for him. God hears those prayers, and God's able to work. Many Muslims have come to faith through a dream. You're dealing with a person with dementia. So there's so many factors there, but I think just your love and your prayers are, they're at work there.
Jasmine, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective, and that's all the time we have on today's program. We will be back tomorrow between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time. We open up the phone lines about 7 minutes before that, so give us a call then. If you were on the phone today, sorry that we couldn't get to your call, but try again tomorrow. For Brian Broderson, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark, I'm Brian Perez. Have a good evening. God bless you. Pastor's Perspective is sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.